Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 4. The most TOS-iest of them all? So far. Hey, it is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you right here from the heart of Trekland via Trekland Treks, and letting the dust settle just a bit on all the recent Trek headlines, so that you don't get just another hot take or a quick take, but you get a second opinion from Dr. Trek. Hey, look, I have been writing, editing, interviewing, witnessing, punditing, hosting, commenting, dot connecting, and yes, fanning Star Trek for a while now. And I just want to say, no, I mean it. So far, of the 14 Strange New Worlds episodes, has this felt the most classically TOS-iest of them all? I mean, the original series? First off, that title, it has a meaning. Figuratively, lotus eaters denotes a person who spends their time indulging in pleasure and luxury rather than dealing with practical pursuits. Okay, that's what it's come to be, but in the ancient Greek, the lotus eaters were those living on an island dominated by the lotus tree. Basically, it's a plant that made everybody just forget everything they knew back home. Their memories, in other words. So, you've already got a metaphor. You've got an amalgam here for the real-life adventure of the A-plot of the story. So yes, what a TOS, what an original series 1960s throwback feel to this episode. Now, I'm not just talking about the fact that, of course, the whole thing takes place on a planet, Rigel VII. Well, it's mentioned. We don't actually go there. Well, we do. We see one brief fight. It's the original Captain Pike fighting the Kalar warrior with Yavina, who's conjured up this dream, but it's all reflective of an actual, and this is what's cool this episode, an actual episode that just happened prior to the main events of The Cage, or / the throwback scenes from Menagerie 1 and 2. But more so than the canon reference, look, it's the whole throwback vibe of the landing party on the planet, the landing party getting into native garb, maybe not without the most advanced replicators to do it. And then you got those primitive native costumes inside a hut made of carpets on sticks. I mean, it was Capella 4 vibes from Friday's Child all over the place. I love that look and feel. And then you had even the vibe of, I don't know, Xenite gas on Ardana being the deciding factor in the haves and the have-nots. It was so simplistic. It was so black and white. It was wonderful. Best of all, it was one of those planets where Vulcan brain evolution or Elysian genetic engineering or even, augment DNA were of no help. Everybody was on an even playing field here with the crisis of the planet of the week. Kudos to, yes, familiar names in those credits. The writers, Kristen Beyer, 321, 3 Discovery episodes, 2 Picards, and her first Strange New Worlds. And yes, she has a Star Trek too. Kirsten, of course, coming out of the Voyager relaunch books, getting into the Picard, and before that, the Discovery writing room, having a seminal influence, being the original canon watcher from inside the writer's room. And it shows once again here. Davy Perez coming to Star Trek with Strange New Worlds' first season, being the Gorn Master with Memento Mori and All Those Who Wander. Well, it's a change of tone here. The horror is a little bit more nuanced, and I'll get to that in a minute. The director, first-time Trek director, Eduardo Sanchez, he's been a busy one-off director all over television for the last couple of decades, but he started out. He claimed fame as the co-director of the Blair Witch Project. Makes sense. All right, big things, little things. And I got to start off. We're going to plunge right into the scene that plunges us into the story. That Ready Room briefing by Una. Going back, well, she says 5 years ago, back to the fight on Rigel VII, which is exactly the way Chris Pike, and for those of you who have not sampled the original series, going back all the way to, yes, The Cage, the first pilot. Of course, it's Jeffrey Hunter playing Captain Pike then, but he says it. His doctor, then Dr. Philip Boyce, says, "What's eating you, Chris? The fight on Rigel VII?" And of course, Captain Pike then shoots back, "Yes, my own yeoman and 2 others dead, 7 injured. Look at the screen. We've got the 3 dead." Now, the names, I can't wait to find out where these names come from or who those people are in the photos. But we've got M. Alberth, the woman who says it's a science specialist, but she's in red, so we'll figure that one out later. We've got C. Plummer, who is the science's male ensign in the middle, and then on the left. Now, I saw Z Nguyen. Of course, we find out his name is Zach in a few minutes. He's listed as the yeoman. I saw yeoman, and I thought, wait a minute. My own yeoman and 2 others dead. Thank you, Captain Pike. What happens later on? But we get Yeoman J.M. Colt in the pilot for The Cage. She's his new yeoman that is replacing Yeoman Nguyen. So this is the guy that they think died, and that's why we get Yeoman Colt. It's so sweet. It's so sweet. And what's even better is later on, neither Lon nor Mbenga have any clue who this yeoman is, who any of these people are. They weren't there at the time. And they especially have no idea who Zach Wynn is, this little yeoman that's now the emperor of the little planet. But thank you for having them have no familiarity with that character at all. I can't tell you how cool it was to have those pop up there, realize there are 3, and one of them is Pike's original yeoman. Elsewhere around the ship, we've got Shuttle Bay 1 here. I think it's so cool that they're always so specific to say landing parties. Landing parties, 23rd century. Away team, 24th century. That's why seeing Shuttle Bay 1 on the wall graphic there, I would have rather seen Hangar Deck 1, but oh well. Shuttle Bay is such a 24th century term. But, you know, it is what it is. It might be Captain's preference. You know, at one point, Spock is looking at the conditions on the planet and says that Rigel VII is not a normal planet. I really wish he'd said that it was not a normal class M planet. Or, okay, the revisionistic, it's not an M class planet. But that is a small thing. What is cool is, I guess, asteroid slinging is a thing now. So thank you, Picard, although this technically would have come first. And hey, Tellarite alert. Tellarite sonnets are a thing. Why does this feel like it's like Boolean bathroom engineers? I get the joke. Uhura and oatmeal, who knew? And can I just say, the illuminated path to take you to your room. Now, yes, I know everybody knows that's from the cockpit. That's from the fuselage of any jet airliner, right? Emergency lighting. But do you remember? It was so revolutionary at the time. But way back in the pilot of Farpoint, Encounter at Farpoint for TNG, displaying how the new vocally activated computer works. Originally, they had the capacity built into the rigging and the lighting to press panels, say, "Show me sick bay," and have lighted lights along the walls. So that was a new concept at the time, but here we find out it was really, it's really century-old technology. Okay. But yes, I do have some questions, and it's piling onto something we looked at last week. There's a curious thing happening here with, I know you're going to love this, stardates. We somehow regressed back to the stardates in the thousands. I mean, we're barely up to the 1200s. This show is in the 1600s. They are squeezing it out, thanks to all the personal logs, a lot of them from Erica Ortega's. We've got 1630.1, then 1630.3, and then after most of the action of the show is gone, we're still squeezing it down to 1632.2. I mean, these are all lower than the original 2000 star dates of the original Menagerie, which would have happened 5 years before this. So something interesting is going on. It's not just that these are lower numbers than what we get into the 5 digits of a century later. There's a whole different concept working with these star dates. Now, I've already talked about how Gene's original timey-wimey get around all this was to talk about star dates are determined by the warp factor involved at the moment, and also the location in the galaxy, down to the fact that the local density of matter. Now, that was a completely, technobabble explanation for something that the tech heads have loved to have nailed down ever since, and the TNG era gave us that. Something is going on here where the star dates are still thousands off. We climbed into the 2000s, we're back down here. I know I'm putting half of you to sleep, but it's interesting. Is it just a mid-course correction in the show? Will the future 4K pink rays retcon the star dates and get everything in alignment by whatever system everyone eventually agrees upon? Is the retcon perfection? We'll see. Oh, and just for the record, we started off this year, everyone was quoting this season as happening in Gregorian calendar year 2260. Basically, going on the fact that last season was 2259, you advance a year a season. We've only got, 10 episode seasons. That doesn't have to happen. No one has made that a rule. What's more, I noticed Memory Alpha and others are now still calling the season 2259, which means we're still 6 years away from Where No Man and Kirk in the center seat, much less 7 years away, 8 years away even, from the events of the first season that we keep referencing and getting into. More than that, it makes Una's line about the events of the original fight on Rigel VII from 2254 that is dated in, that is now back to being 5 years, and that part of canon needs to land, can breathe easier. Now, my other question this week, who is doing makeup and hair for Christina Chong? For La'an. It's the best it's ever been. I love her look. They're out scruffing around in the desert. She's on ship either way. I think it's the most flattering for her. Same goes for Melanie Scrofano, who is playing Captain Battelle. Best look for her of the series so far. By the way, you may have missed this. In Ad Astra Aspera, the pad, what am I going to call it? Can't call it an acutogram. How about a Timogram for Timothy Peel, the graphics guru for this series? Well, the pad for the court gave Captain Battelle a first name, Marie. So you're welcome. Anyway, we will eventually find out which members of the hair and makeup team are working on Christina and working on Melanie. But whoever it is, don't let them go. Keep them right there. Okay, let's look at some characters this week. Now, Vice Admiral Pasok, the Vulcan, who presided over the prosecution of Una's court-martial last week in episode 3, he's not seen again, but he's definitely referenced. And I love how, once again, we're getting the very un-Vulcanly, very human vibes of payback and revenge for Captain Battelle losing the case that she should not have won. This petty thing of passing her over for a promotion to Commodore. Well, it's amazing seeing Commodore being a promoted to rank. But, it's once again, it's a texture, not trivia thing. Yes, he's a Vulcan, but once again, we see the Vulcans are hardly the perfect denizens of the galaxy that, well, maybe we were spoiled for Spock. Pasok is another critter, and he wasn't even on screen this week. By the way, notice how he's referred to as Judge Advocate Pasok. So he's a vice admiral, he's a flag rank, but he is in the Judge Advocate General's office, and all the career attorneys, this is per common military parlance today, the attorneys who work with the Judge Advocate General as the top of the heap, they're all referred to as Judge Advocates. But someone who was on screen, actor Reed Birney, playing Luke with a Q. Wow. This was a role that was very carefully crafted. Raise your hand if you were surprised at the depth and complexity of this character. Now, look, he had a reversal. I mean, it was very complex. This guy, he was not, the cardboard villain of the week who turns friendly for our heroes. Villain, even adversary, he was far from that. I mean, he was a character, a humanoid character who could actually be turned in his conviction. He could be turned by sincerity and honesty and conviction, especially in a plot like this, where we're not operating with our surface identities. Everyone's going along with what they're able to cling to of their memory and their core value and belief, and he responds to that. Not the cardboard adversary of the week at all. I mean, what's amazing is they're losing their memories. Luke might be too afraid of his pain, but he's not too afraid to enunciate all about it. No, he is far from being the token helpful alien of the week. All right, Captain Pike himself, he's sure back in it after, what was this, newborn leave, the first few episodes, and all some of that fandom hand-wringing about how he's not in it. Well, he's certainly back, and you know what else is back? RHIP, baby. Rank has its privileges. That little nod at the end when he caused their ships to rendezvous so he could make his own personal apology to Battelle. Am I going to start calling her Marie now? To Captain Battelle himself? Yeah. The old RHIP was ringing in my ears as she came in and slightly chastising for what he had pulled just to get them back together. But most of all, and you didn't see it coming, this is an Erica Ortegas episode. Now, those of you keeping score at home, one of the main criticisms of the first season, it was, but not by commission, but by omission, was that everyone got a spotlight show, a spotlight storyline, except Ortegas. Not fair. Melissa Navias all over the break was saying, hey, hang in there with me. They were all the writers, the showrunners, everyone's promising, and I guess this is it, the fourth season. This is also one of these episodes like last week. I'm going along, you're kind of getting, good or bad, excited or not, you're getting a vibe for what the episode is, and then they make a switch. You're 2/3 of the way through the episode, and somewhere along midway, you got the landing party, you got the alien culture, you got the throwback retcon. I mean, yeah, you've got Pike and Mbenga and Laan on the surface. And suddenly, of this shipboard B-plot, it's not Spock, it's not Una, it's not even Chapel, it's Ortegas' show. And the crux of fighting for your memories, fighting to hold on to who you are, and emotion is the key to that. Emotion breaking through. She's doing the same thing. She's got the same role that, let's go back to this side of paradise. She's got the same role that Spock eventually does in fighting off the effect of the spores. She's doing the on-camera self-saving that Kirk does in that episode. She pulls herself through it with a little help from the computer voiceover, but still. And I think Melissa does a great job. I mean, this is a spotlight show, and she's got a lot on her shoulders to carry this off. She's the crux of showing that pivot point, really more so than the people on the planet, almost. Now, on the fun side, we've got the visuals here. We've got Spock handing out pads. Good old Spock, he's, as she says, he's out there swinging. He's going to print everyone's vial files on pads so that no one will forget who they really are. Trouble is, as we see on the bridge between the two of them, between he and Ortegas, she forgets how to read. But if you take a moment to freeze frame, you can see it's a little fuzzy around the edges, but there's a wonderful, what do we want to call these? Timographs? Timothy Peel, the graphics guru for this show, it's a very functionally filled out pad with her basic bio, which is where the fun is. I mean, her serial number is on there. Yeah, it's SC945. 0710 RDC, just so you know. We know that her birthday now is May 23rd, 2233. And by the way, that's not Melissa's birthday, which was one of the conventions used all through Next Gen and DS9 and Voyager. Whose birthday was really May 23rd? Maybe it was the day that Tim was doing the graphic. I don't know. This is all going to be the fun stuff to come. Not. I am not giving you a hot take or a quick take, but still, we hadn't had time again to factor all this out. It will come out. It will be so much fun. But look at the rest. She was born in Barranquilla, Colombia, Earth. She's got siblings listed, Fabiola Ortegas. Her parents are Miguel and Indistinguishable Ortegas. We'll get that soon, too. Her degree from Starfleet looks like it was Advanced Astral Navigation, formally, which would be off. And most of all, and we get this from the voiceover, from the computers, right? The self-help. Deck 6, Section G, Room 269. Thank you very much, computer. Yes, that computer that's directing you with the directional flow. I don't know. There'll be more to come as we get a clear look at that pad. But I'm just thinking I'm all in on her. Aside from the fact that, yes, it was the personality, it was the memory retrieval, it was the emotion we needed, but she's clearly referred and self-refers to herself as the Alpha Shift pilot, helmsman, navigator. Does she not know the meaning that Alpha Shift implies that there's a Beta Shift and a Gamma Shift? And lordy, maybe even a Delta Shift? I mean, weren't there other helmsmen who could have flown the ship who were just working on other shifts? Okay, we'll let that one slide. Look, we know that she was the crux of this show because fast forward to the end, that was some heavy-duty wrap-up personal log that she delivers at the end. I mean, it's so long, it's multi-plot heavy. I wouldn't even call it, I know it's like almost like inverted exposition. What would you call that? Maybe it should be outposition? Whatever it is, it goes on and on and on, and it's wrapping up multiple plots. I almost wonder if they ran out of time with the script and had to have her shoehorn in the wrap-ups of some of these plots rather than show them, even in a montage. But that personal log was doing some heavy lifting for us audience folk, and I'm fine with it. Most of all, though, looking at the episode overall, there was one thread that it was a disappointment. It tended to come up anytime Spock and Ortegas were alone on the bridge together. Suddenly, they're the only two people. Now, you could chalk this up to everyone else is wandering around in their zombie state. Everyone else is off somewhere in the ship, being depressed, being memory-ridden. But it just felt weird. We had obviously a fleshed-out bridge, fully crewed, earlier on, later on. Now, we did have the token scenes with folks in sickbay and folks aimlessly wandering the corridors. You could tell those were the token, lots of extra days. All those scenes were filmed together on the same day. It just felt a little budget conscious on some of these scenes that were stringently not populated where it felt like they still ought to be. Although you could say that in itself might be a nod to the budget consciousness of the original series, but not always. But aside from that, yes, conscious moment watching the show. There was so much here. I really enjoyed the cinematography of the rack focus, the different focusing whenever using the tinny ringing, going back and forth from shipboard to planet and back. There were character bits of going in and out of focus as you concentrate on hearing the ringing first before you saw a picture, and then dissolving through that. I thought that was really sweet. I loved most of all in everything that Ortegas did to pivot with her reclaiming her memories. I love the parallel structure, which popped up more than once in this episode. The parallel structure of I fly the ship in that original mocking tone when she was still in all her faculties. And then the I fly the ship in the shocked tone when she was doing her best to get them back. There was a parallelism. There was an echo that I saw playing out in different scenarios all throughout this episode. Oh, and I loved all the featured regulars from this episode come on the bridge at the end. When Chaplin and Benga showed up and just leaned on the rail to be there in the final frame, and we got the close-ups all around while the dialogue was flowing, it really was almost the cherry on top of this most TOS-iest of all the strange new worlds. There is one more subtextual layer to this. I don't know if this was intentional, but I certainly felt it. As all the characters on the planet, on the ship, they're going through the agony of not just confronting what's happening to each other, but hearing about it from Luke and the others who are bothering to explain to them what the forgetting is all about and what the social status of their lot in life is going to be. I really felt like this was this was a little story morality tale. I felt like we were dramatizing what it must be like to be grappling with dementia, to be grappling with Alzheimer's. This almost felt like a morality tale, not about a moral per se, but just illustrating what that process feels like and what the struggle to hold on to our memories must be like. So it's not an allegory per se, but in the best Star Trek way, it's a parallel texture, it's a parallel structure that makes you think and brings it home. And then having said that, and knowing Davy Perez was in the writing team, the moments of having, oh my gosh, and Jess Bush as Chapel sells it herself finally. Watching, not so much the folks on the ground, but our shipboard folks who are mainly extras, but watching the crew aimlessly walking about, they might as well have been zombies. Okay, last thing. This may be the most TOS throwback thing of all. You used to read about Gene insisting and Bill Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, the biggest hurdle, even with the scripts they had in 1966, was knowing that the public was perceiving science fiction as still a kiddie thing, as not serious. They were pioneering a television genre in more way, an attitude. We've all come out of the closet now with our geekiness and our nerdiness, but back in the day, that was something to admit you were even watching the show. Imagine being a performer in it. Shatner and Nimoy were both so conscious of having to make this dialogue stick, living in this world. The creatives were all aware of making those built environments. Everything had to be built from scratch, making it as realistic as it could be. These actors bringing home the honesty and the emotion of the moment, so that no matter how outlandish the situation, that the pathos would be there, the heart would be there, that it would be a drama that just happened to be set in space and not sci-fi that happens weird because that's what sci-fi does. And that's what I really felt with this show. So yeah, the most TOS throwback thing of all this week might be Anson himself having to make and deliver lines like, "I'll come back for you when we get our memories back." I mean, after all of that Sturm and Drang about getting to the Kalar headquarters and, and what's hidden there, I so wanted someone to talk about the chalice at the palace with the brew that is true. All right. All right. I promise I'll stop there. Feels like this is a good place to sign off on this second opinion. But what did you think? This is your chance. Come on, leave a comment below, would you please? And like and subscribe while you're at it, Please share the signal, spread the signal. Hey, it's your chance to subscribe for some Star Trek sanity for once online, would you please? Most of all, if you enjoy what Dr. Trek is saying and this Trekland point of view we're laying out, I invite you to go over and check out all of our podcasts, our live streams, our experiences, like the Trek Files from Roddenberry, like Trekland Tuesdays Live, and Cadet Alice and Dr. Trek Talk Prodigy. And yes, our Trekland Treks Day Tours, and of course, Portal 47, the background monthly package every month. All of that is over at LarryNemecek.com. Check it out, would you? And Trek well, everybody.